The world. The world. The world is still reacting to the death of Cuban dictator Fidel Castro, who died on Friday at 90. Now, Cubans are either dancing in the streets in Miami or they're crying in the streets in Cuba itself. Now, some critics are saying President Obama should have come out harder against the brutality of Castro's regime in his statement.
Do we have a statement?
I do. Yes. At this time of Fidel Castro's passing, we extend a hand of friendship to the Cuban people. We know that this moment fills Cubans in Cuba and in the United States with powerful emotions, recalling the countless ways in which Fidel Castro altered the course of individual lives, families, and of the Cuban nation. History will record and judge the enormous impact of this singular figure on the people and world around him. Today, we offer condolences to Fidel Castro's family, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Cuban people.
So what's wrong with that?
I'm nauseated.
Why?
I'm nauseated because you're talking about a mass murderer. You're talking about a guy who imprisoned people, who put gay people in jail. This is not a guy, when I see countless ways in which Fidel Castro altered the course of individual lives, yeah, by killing them.
Well, he didn't say one way. He didn't say altered it for the good. He just said it was altered.
We stand for freedom. This is the United States of America.
Yeah,
we stand for freedom of the press. We stand for the freedom of people to speak out against politics they don't like. No, but we do. We sit at this table every day and we're able to speak our minds, and people in Cuba don't have that right. And I want my president to speak up for those people.
So,
and this was a guy who imprisoned people who
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think he should have said, after just getting the doors open, allowing for people to go, see family, do stuff, do you think he should have said, and you're a bonehead, or was this the proper way to deal with this, given all of this? Well, you know, you can.
I think you have to call
I listen to you, and I'm saying, diplomatically, if you're trying to keep, I'm sorry, baby, if you're trying to keep the lines of communication open and you're trying to keep a flow going, I think that's the way you do it. Now, we can go the other way, and I will say to people, 60 years of dictatorship, no freedom of the press, no freedom of people, no freedom of speech.
Right.
Keep an eye on that, because that's what America will look like if we lose the ability to have these conversations. Now, a lot of people say, you know, there's no possibility of that. Okay, but I personally think, yeah, there's a lot of really bad stuff. And as president, I want you to say, you know what? Because a lot of people didn't grow up with the Castro regime as being bad.
Well, you know,
I'm just saying, you just have to know that. I've been there as well.
I went to Cuba, yeah, so did she. I went to Cuba last April. And it's interesting. I mean, they have a 100% literacy rate there. So everybody gets a free education. Everybody has top-of-the-line medical care, so everyone's healthy.
Top of the line?
Pretty good, yeah. Well, actually, as a matter of fact, there's one thing that's interesting to me, because there's a vaccine that's being developed in Cuba to treat lung cancer, and it's showing very promising results. So if Trump says we're going to cut ties with Cuba completely, our doctors will not be able to work with their doctors.
He's not saying that, though. He's not saying cut ties with Cuba. What he's saying is, let's open the economic gates between the United States and Cuba, but with conditions. You have to free political prisoners. You have to give people freedom. You have to give people basic human rights.
You got to do the same thing here.
That's what he should be saying.
A lot of this is about diplomacy, and Jed and I rarely agree on anything, but I can agree with you in the sense that I did want a statement acknowledging from our president that he was a brutal dictator, that you know, that he imprisoned people, that he murdered people. I did want that. I wanted to hear that, but to Whoopi's point, my goodness, you need to be more diplomatic. Donald Trump sent out a tweet that said, Fidel Castro is dead, with an exclamation point. That is not the kind of leader that I want. I want somebody that's going to be a diplomat. I want somebody that's going to look at the entire picture. But I will say, as a Latina, I was a bit surprised that his statement was so sanitized.
Well, do you remember when relations began with Cuba? Do you remember the conversations and the ability that Obama had to say what he felt about Cuba and why they were opening up and how they were trying to make inroads? I think...
Remind us.
I don't have exactly, but, you know, somebody, you know, he was very hard on them, and he said, listen, we're doing this because we're trying to make a balance. We're trying to get a balance, and you've been doing this, and this is how you've treated people, and people hate you, and this is why, and we're trying to combat that. So I feel like, okay, He said, yeah, man is dead. The Cuban people who are there are mourning him. They are mourning him. A lot of those people, a lot of them are mourning him.
And they're still under a dictatorship.
They're under a dictatorship.
Right,
They have,
let's be clear.
But that's the point.
But look what's happening with the Cuban people who fled that regime. They're celebrating.
Yes,
they're in Little Havana celebrating.
But they're not here celebrating. That's my point. My point is they are there. Wait up. They are there. You know, and he is talking to the people of Cuba. He's not talking to the Cubans here.
But he's speaking
talking
for the
to
United
them.
States.
He's speaking to the Cuban people.
Don't you think there's a way, though, for him to have been diplomatic and at the same time call a murderer and say this is not representative?
No, I think you either can call a murderer, or you have to do what he did.
But
which
what
is
about
say,
the
there's a lot of
victims? What
stuff.
about the families whose families, people who were victims of this horror? He's a monster. I want to see my president say this man was a
I'm not arguing
monster.
with you about. Hold on. Wait. I'm not arguing about whether he's a monster or not.
Right.
I'm saying to you that what Obama did was what a president is supposed to do.
Not in my opinion.
I understand
Not in
that.
my opinion.
I understand that.
Not for a mass murderer.
We hear it.
Oh, listen, are you kidding? Not to a mass murder? You know how many mass murderers this country has supported?
And I disagree with that as well. Like, I wouldn't want to see the... If
But
Hitler
I don't
dies,
know.
Sarah,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, whereas I could see Obama walking the line,
Yeah.
there was a lot of flack for Justin Trudeau from Canada, who actually, he referenced being a family friend. I think this was a totally tone-deaf.
Well, because it was open.
Yeah.
Because Cuba is open to
Canada.
and has always been open to Canada.
Yeah, and there was, I think lifting him up was definitely a mistake.
Yeah.
And he tweeted his statement, which said, way more than Obama didn't say. It said, like, this guy
You know,
was
the way
brave.
I understand it, though, the people who fled Cuba were in good shape in those days. They had jobs, they were doctors, they were middle-class
Talk to
people.
Marco Rubio. That is not the case.
Well, some of them were,
His family fled there, and they fled oppression.
Look, all I'm
no one
saying-
flees a good conviction.
Look,
Why
all
would
I'm
they believe
saying,
me?
Jedediah, is that if you are in a country where you have nothing, and now some dictator comes in and says, okay, we're going to give you work, we're going to give you food, we're going to give you education, we're going to give you health care. You're happy about that. It depends
They're not happy.
It depends on where you're coming from in the first place.
But they're not happy. No one flees a good situation. If you're happy and you have great health care, you're not fleeing.
Let me say something. There's an incredible art scene going on down there. There's a beautiful music scene
Would you
going on.
want to live there?
No, I don't want to live
But
there.
they don't either.
The people are
they want to live
suffering.
here in freedom.
I think we need to be clear.
To do with me.
But this
People want
is a
freedom.
dictatorship.
Yeah.
People are suffering there. Let's be clear about
Yeah.
that. But again, when you talk about diplomacy, remember those people are still suffering under a dictatorship of Raul Castro, Fidel Castro's brother.
Yes.
What's
And so,
going to happen when he dies?
and he's 85 years old. He idolized his brother. And so if Obama is being the statesman that he is, you have to think as a leader of the people that are there now.
Yes.
And I suspect
And that's my
what
point.
he was thinking
That's
about.
my point.
How do you have a leader? How do you have a leader that is a dictator that did oppress so many that remains lauded by others? Like, how do you live such
Because
a?
there was no coup. There was no coup.
Yeah.
He was there for 50 some odd years. I mean, Barbara.
600 assassination attempts, by the way.
Yeah.
600.
Many of them by this
According
country.
to the Cubans.
Yeah.
The CIA tried to kill him.
So Barbara Walters has a statement because, you know, she
Barbara.
went down.
Barbara and Fidel.
I saw that.
And she said, I first interviewed Fidel Castro 39 years ago. He was a charming, fiercely guarded about his private life. He called our interviews fiery debates. During our times together, he made clear to me he was an absolute dictator and that he was a staunch opponent of democracy. I told him that we were most profoundly disagreeing. What we were most profoundly disagreeing on was the meaning of freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know,
We're
yes.
supposed to attack Barbara because she's smiling
No,
in
I
this
think
picture?
that's a great interview, but but she's not the president of the United States. That's the representative of freedom and democracy for
Well,
everyone.
the representative
and she's
of
saying, I don't
freedom
condone
and
you.
democracy opened up the lines of communication so that families. Sorry,
People disagree with that, though.
You know what?
I disagree with that move because
You don't. How do you know what I'm going to say that you disagree? Wait until I say it and then disagree
I
with
disagree
it.
with what you just
know?
said. I do.
What I'm saying to you is he opened up these lines of communication so that people could go back, so we could find a way to change what's happening. This is the first movement in 60 years. I understand the people are happy Fidel is gone. Lots of people are happy. But I think what the president was doing was not to poop on the people who are mourning him back there. Like Elian Gonzalez says he was a father figure to me. We can't understand that, but we don't live there.
Remember him? That
So,
kid?
yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I think he chose not to say, you know, this is a horrible, horrible man, because he said it already. But now the man is dead. He said, listen, we understand this didn't impact you, but it impacted a whole lot of other people. So time will tell exactly what that impact is, because once both these guys are gone, the people will then make a decision about the road they want to go on. But we now have some light, or people feel like we have some light to help Cuba get to where they may want to
I
be.
hear your point, and I think the openness is important. I just wish it had conditions. I want to force that country, if they're going to have the benefit of us opening our doors and helping economically, and I want to do that, I want to force them to acknowledge human rights. I want to force them to
You
let
should run
prisoners
for president
out.
then, because then you can
Maybe
do
I
that.
should. Maybe I
We'll
should.
be right back with more Hot Topics.